I joined From Software in 1997, and at the time, the company had just launched Armored Core. The company size was still small, there were only 40 employees. And my major at the university was actually art design, but I began my video game industry career as a game designer. In regards to the uniqueness of From Software as a company, nothing has really changed even compared to the latest stages of the company. At the time, it was still pretty obvious that From Software was a venture. And although I joined From Software as a game designer, I also worked on some of the concept art, and I even worked on some of the game programming. This kind of applies to all From Software employees at the time. We basically take the same approach in all of our titles in regards to the game development. And although Dark Souls has been gaining a good reputation among fans and the media, but we definitely took the same approach to other titles in the past.
So just as much passion went into games like Metal Wolf Chaos as Dark Souls?
It's not an exaggeration to say we did our best in all of our past titles. It's true that sometimes we look back with regret, like maybe we should have done this with some past titles. I know that we're doing our best with all of those past titles. From a fan's point of view, Demon's Souls had a big impact on the studio as a whole. But in my view, Kingsfield, which had been launched 2 weeks after the PlayStation, had the most impact to From Software. The reason being, Kingsfield has a worldview as well as a game development philosophy that From Software has been succeeding at as a whole, even to today. It's obvious that Demon's Souls is similar to Kingsfield and the current era. Demon's Souls launched 10 years after From Software launched Kingsfield. And at the time, From Software had been working on Armored Core. And it's true that we've been enjoying working on the mech action game, but at the same time, we're interested in working on some new game that has the same worldview or the same game design philosophy that Kingsfield had. And actually, right after the launch of the PlayStation 2, we actually released the Eternal Ring, although it is similar to Demon's Souls, largely in the worldview. But the game development point of view is a little bit different from Kingsfield. And we were looking for another opportunity for another Kingsfield-like game, using the modern technology, the latest technology. And Demon's Souls for PlayStation 3 was actually the one that we came up with the answers. Demon's Souls is the first game from Software where we collaborated with another company as a publisher. It was also the first title that had the intention of releasing worldwide. At that time, Project Ace, which had been released by Banpresto, now merged with Bandai Namco Entertainment, is the only other collaboration that From Software has done with a publisher in Japan. But that game is mech action, and also released only in Japan. In that sense, Demon's Souls is completely different from that example. And Sony had the intention of releasing Demon's Souls in a worldwide market from the beginning, so the game development approach that we had to take was completely different from other previous titles. There's a lot of things, a lot of adjustments that we had to make in regards to a collaboration with Sony. And that becomes one of the great outcomes that we can actually reflect to the Dark Souls project. The theme of Dark Souls is to experience the sense of accomplishment through overcoming the difficulties, which is a totally different approach from other games out there. Nowadays, there are a lot of fans out there who actually understand this in a proper manner and are really enjoying playing the games in the Dark Souls series. I'm really pleased to see that, and at the same time, a little bit surprised about the current status of the Dark Souls franchise. There's no doubt that the game requires a lot of effort to complete each stage or as a whole. Maybe that's the reason why, in the past, our games have been treated as shitty games. But nowadays, a lot of publishers, developers in this industry have respect for what we've created. So I'm a little bit surprised and very pleased to them showing an understanding to the game development approach that we've had for the past 20 years.
I remember one game where a bunch of the design team got really into Dark Souls. When the first Dark Souls game played out, we'd like, all the designers would get together.
It was devastating, the productivity.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's one perspective.
One of the biggest threads we've ever had here at Bungie was about Dark Souls, because it was just this one long-running social experience where all these people are like trying to figure out how to play this game. The notion that the game is not just a completely open book that's spoon-fed to you in like little nibbles of like baby food, it's something that we really appreciate. And we're like, hey, Destiny should have a little bit more of that like actual depth.
I'm very pleased and a little surprised and also a little bit nervous about hearing those kinds of comments. Again, our game development stance hasn't changed in the past 20 years. And in the past, our games used to be treated like shitty games. Fortunately, the market or the players, the fans, media have all changed, and now they respect what we've been doing all these years. But what we believe as far as game development goes has not changed for the past 20 years. I just want to make sure that those young game developers in the companies don't misunderstand about that.
How much do you think Katakawa's purchase has influenced the studio and the overall studio culture?
So a lot of people are asking that question. But actually, none of the members of the Katakawa have asked us to change our game development approach or create something new that they want. Rather than that, they actually respect the work that From Software has created in the past and the game development approach that we've taken since the foundation. They basically give us the backup support to continue that game development foundation.
So do you have a message for the fans about Dark Souls 3 specifically?
Players will die so many times in the game, but we're trying to create challenging games, not difficult games. We are aware that we're famous for creating games with a high difficulty level, but again, it would be ideal, and I'd be very happy if the media out there said From Software is working on challenging games, not difficult games. We're currently working on the third installment for the Dark Souls franchise, but it's true that the series is at a turning point. We'll definitely be letting fans and media know what we'll be working on next for the Dark Souls series in the near future. We always want to challenge and something new, and we always want to keep releasing new games. It's pretty obvious that the fans out there are looking for more Dark Souls type big games. We actually want to work on both big games and small games. We're not biased to any specific direction in that sense. We'll keep convincing fans that as a whole, From Software should be working on big games and small games simultaneously. We definitely want to reflect those findings that we've found from Dark Souls to game development in the future. But at the same time, we definitely want to try something new in regards to the upcoming titles.